Mhm.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not sure where that's recording, but I think it should be recording to my actual computer.
It'll usually give under movies, there'll be like a Zoom folder or something that you'll be able to find it in.
Okay, hopefully it'll record this.
Yeah,
Um,
usually
I
it'll
think
kind
it
of show
will.
up.
It does say that I am Brian Easter Day, but I'm not. So
it's okay. And it does say recording. So, okay, so why did it? Okay, there it goes. Um, okay, so how have you guys been?
Very busy.
Good.
yeah, me too, but it's been getting better. So finances are getting better and it's just like now it's a snowballing up effect, it seems. It's
Good,
starting to
good.
feel good.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
see an
good.
end in sight with my overwhelm. So I keep
Yay.
reminding myself of that.
Yeah, it's good to I always felt it was like it's a really good thing to kind of task things and complete things. Even though
Mhm.
it can be difficult to do that. It's like you kind of feel like you want to just get all that shit done. And then you're just like, wait a minute, if I do that, then I'm gonna end up like Sara and have laryngitis for a week. So
Sometimes we overdo it a little bit.
yeah, my husband's all like giving out to me. It's like every time, Sara, any lessons
Mm.
learned? I'm like, oh yeah.
Almost
Aw.
predictable at that point when he knows like if you do this, this will happen.
Yeah. So but it wasn't too bad. It was only like since Tuesday. So
Mm.
which I thought was kind of a funny correlation because I restarted my Knitters for Life group that I
I
had,
saw that.
yeah, in
Awesome
Europe.
job.
Thank you. So, and it didn't go too bad. We actually had three people show up and a couple of people just walking by, which is usually the case for the group. But they're like, "Oh, what is this?" You know. And
Where did you do it live, sir?
no,
No.
so how I'm actually going to do it is like with this the stuff we do here, I'm gonna put it up on my channels eventually. But with the Knitters for Life group, I'm gonna kind of work in the other channel I had where I was teaching to sew and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the way I think it'll work best is like I'll be teaching people how to knit or whatever the thing is. And throughout it, how I did it was we had conversations, or I would put out topics, or this idea or that concept or whatever, and people would respond to it. And instead of saying, oh, well, you got to think about it this way, and this is wrong, and blah, 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 and da, 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 where people throw up their defense system automatically through whatever conditioning or because they're
Mm-hmm.
just not ready to. Everybody's got their own stepping stones of progression for understanding spirituality and knowledge and all this stuff, including natural law, is not special to that. So, um, I found that when I was doing that with the class in Ireland, that I was actually able to make a little bit of an impact. So with this class,
That's great.
I'm going to have the class every week. It's just going to be a regular, easygoing kind of class. I'll take pictures and whatever throughout that month that I'm doing it. I'll focus on like one lesson, one specific type of thing. Like, this first month, I'm going to go over the importance of thoughts, emotions, and actions, how we
Mm.
use those properly, how we use them to create with, how we subconsciously use them without even thinking, feeling, or doing anything with it. It's part of how reality works. So when you figure out how that works and you understand that you have um you have enough confidence within yourself to understand, because you have to have confidence in order to take in information. If
Yeah.
you feel like you're just a piece of shit, you're going to shut everything down.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's how it works. Like, it's just how people are, you know, despite conditioning, or you don't need any of that stuff. That's just how people are.
Mhm.
So I feel like when I'm distracting them with teaching them how to crochet or knit or something, I can give them that information. They're not only building that self-worth, that self-confidence, and like, oh, look, I made this little doodad, whatever the hell means nothing thing, craft. But now I've got this information in me, and I don't even know where it came from. Now I know
That's
it.
cool. That's
So
very
So
cool, Sarah.
so you're connecting with people on just a regular level of doing like a craft and then using that as an opportunity to bring about other discussions and awareness.
yeah, and it
Yes.
works. And we're doing it
Yes.
in a place called, it's a local bookstore called the Open Book. Um, and it's a place where it's like fully diverse.
And you're videotaping it for sharing?
I'm not videotaping the
Oh,
actual classes. I will take
uh-huh.
pictures and put those in the videos with the
Hmm.
lesson.
Hmm.
Because I am going to put up a full video with the full lesson that I give throughout the
Oh,
month,
okay. Got it.
photos and an actual lesson of the main stuff that we learned how to make in the video. So that's going to be like once a month, once I have everything in
I love it.
it's sorted out, which will come with like packages and stuff for people
Mm.
that people can participate with. Because um but it does work, and I think it makes a little bit of a different kind of impact
For me
on
a little bit.
people when you're
There we go.
sitting there next to them.
Yeah, no, it's creative. It's nice to have an alternative way and a forum for sharing information. Yeah, and
Yeah.
inspiring. Cool. And
So
it's very practical too. I really like the aspect of that you're teaching something that has a very practical application for like survival and self-reliance and independence.
It's an old skill that's
Hmm.
kind of leaving. If technology and everything just like shit out right now, people would
Hmm.
probably not have much of a clue on how to do some of those skills. I taught myself how to crochet. I can't do anything extravagant, but I can make a blanket, I can make pot holders and towels. So
Yeah.
I've tried to learn some other skills too, because
Hmm.
they're almost dying trades and stuff like that. But it's useful
Yeah.
to know those things.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
it's very useful, and it's funny talking about this. It kind of ties into the idea that home and hearth is such an
Hmm.
important aspect of um who we are as like human beings, spiritually, as a manifested physical entity, what we need to achieve that on both the non-physical and the physical
Hmm.
realm,
Hmm.
like in those two different worlds. And we need to be
Hmm.
able to combine those together equally
Yeah.
and with a balance. And that takes time, it takes practice, and it's like any other skill. You don't just roll out of the womb being like, oh, look how badass I am about like balancing this shit. It's,
Hmm.
it is a process, it is a skill. Like, nobody got on a bike and just like winged it and was like, I'm awesome.
Had to
It's
be
Yeah.
learned.
you have to learn it,
Yeah.
you have to practice it.
I think that, it's again like one of those fading aspects of a skill that's traditionally passed down from grandmother, to mother to daughter. Like I remember my grandmother's crocheted and
Yeah.
knitted, and I tried to learn. Um, but I didn't really walk away with that as a practice. So I don't remember, and I regret that. I wish that I had taken that more seriously. But I think, traditionally, what we're going to talk about, like home and hearth, that home was the place that these skills were passed down on the matrilineal, level,
Yeah.
and it was very valuable for, clothing our families and
Mm-hmm.
staying warm in winter, all of that. Yeah.
It's always nice to have a place that we can work from. If
Mm-hmm.
life is hard, having that cozy home to come back to, it's that's why we like the name Home and Haven, because it feels like a little safe place from which you can go out into the world and do whatever it is that you do to contribute to society. Let me know if you guys hear some other audio stuff coming through too. Just I'm
It's
not sure
like,
how well this mic is.
it's a little bit of popping, but it's not bad.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you pretty good. But like
Uh,
that's what's funny about the home and hearth idea is that I think some people or most people may even think that this is entirely a feminine thing to be
mhm.
holding. But the thing is like you don't have home and hearth without both the woman and the man. And that
Yes.
is the both the spiritually balanced woman and the spiritually balanced man.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of see it. It's like, you know, where we are the you know, we're the say on the home, on what happens with the home and how the home operates and the inner workings of it, where the men are the, protectors of it. They're the, or where the heart, I should say, I got that mixed up. Where the hearth of it, the men are the home. So like the
Mhm.
home are like the external, or the men are the external and they're protecting the home. They're keeping the home. They're keeping the security. They're keeping the family together. They're keeping the whatever financial, like if you have a farm, and like the men do the external, the women do the internal. I mean, traditionally that's how it works, even though that role could be reversed. It could also be equal, maybe
Mhm.
both men and women do both a little bit of each and it still balances out.
Mhm.
I
um
agree with that. Because,
yeah.
we all need a home. Like, if you're looking at two single individuals, a man or a woman, they would still need a home. I just think that men and women, we express those things and how we go about things are a little bit different due to how we're wired. But
Right.
um, I think it's important for both men and women to have a cozy place. And maybe
Yeah.
that's just my own idea of a
Yeah.
home, but
I'll share a
somewhere
couple
to return to.
thoughts like about the etymology of the words even. So home is equivalent to helm, and the helm is a protective covering or a shelter. So there's an
I like
association
that.
with the home and helm being a place of safety and a place of security, right? And so, there's that phrase, home is where the heart is. And
Yes,
then there's hearth, which I see as sort of the
so
heart of the
close.
home, right? And what is the hearth but the fire, where represents our spirit, represents our internal fire, that which sustains us, and historically the hearth or the fire was what really kept people alive, right? It was a
Yeah,
place where you would
it was
cook your
essential.
food and kept your heating and allowed the safety of the if you're freezing to death, you're not very safe in your home, right? And so that I see it as like a center place, a source and a beginning
I
where
like that.
we begin our lives in this home.
I never
And
looked at
then
it like that. I like that.
yeah. And then this balance, like Sara was saying, of the masculine and feminine, which is essential for like the child being born into this safety of the home with the balance of the masculine and feminine, to protect, keep the protective structure and the nurturing within it, right? So I
Mhm.
think it's like super important. And I think it's like such an important topic in my view, because I think that the home and the hearth have been attacked, and our homes, sadly, are often not safe places for children or, the feminine aspects for people within it. And that the economic and the agendas of, the world are pulling people out of the home, more and more, and to financially survive, it's not built around the hearth so much anymore, but on this external thing where we're leaving the home to have to make money to like pay for the home. Like there's sort of this inversion going on that's weakening the whole center, the structure for all of our like people.
Yeah, and if not so much is centered from the home and raising children, because I love how you mentioned it, it's a place of beginnings. It's so true. If you don't have that good foundation at home to instill morals and values, that's kind of how you get a demoralized society where the state tends, or societal beliefs tend to imprint, and that can even be hard. So I homeschooled for 2.5 years, and my oldest, it wasn't for my oldest. She really kind of likes to have kids as a motivator and stuff. And by now she has a good sense of discernment, but we thought we would let our youngest go in and try the school system. And now we're picking her up every single Friday by 12:50 because they specifically organized a group called Little Families, where they've made it clear that it's not educational at all, but they tell these kids every Friday to go get in with their little families. And family values are very important to us here. If you go and look up the definition of the family, I promise you it's not going to be the school. It's not going to be that social group that they're putting together to just have fun. And I probably wouldn't have had a problem with it if they called it a social group, but I was resistant to the idea of there being like direct attacks on the family through the schooling system, but I had to ask the school why they're using a word completely out of context when they are supposed to be educating our children. And so now, when Little Family Day comes up, we bring her home to her real family so that we can make sure to instill that instead of kind of teach the kids that this social group is your little family, because that's where the repetition and teaching of things indirectly really comes in. So I really see now how this is reflecting in a lot of different ways. And so I think it would be great to see more family values promoted, things of the home. I think I already said values, and morality.
Yeah, that's like key, right? And those are the teaching morality from the center, from the home is what gives your children, I guess, a defense or a protection when kids go out into the world, right? And go to the school.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the foundation. What we give to the children is the foundation through which they'll view the world. And the schooling system does not educate accurately all the time. Not at all. They actually sent home something called nonsense cards where they have the phonetics that are not even phonetically correct. They're having flashcards for kids to imprint these inaccurate phonetics. And so we sent them back and we said, we're going to teach them proper phonetics in real sentences. And everything starts from the home. And the values that we teach our kids. And both of my kids in the schooling system have been very praised for their intelligence. And we had to tell the school, it's because we don't teach them nonsense.
Yeah. And you're not just making them memorizing things, right?
The wrong thing. Like, why don't you just do the same idea with the flashcards with true phonetical words so that they learn real, accurate phonetics instead of distorting the foundation, make them think the wrong thing immediately. Let's teach them the right thing. So yeah, we're looking into a homeschooling curriculum already again.
Well, I have to applaud you for that. Not that it should be unusual for parents to do this and stand up for their children and their educational rights.
Oh yeah.
But more and more today, it's, I hear a lot of the same excuses of, oh, well, they're just too busy. Both parents are working all the time and there's no time to do.
We got to make it work. It's our responsibility, not the state's responsibility to raise and educate and take care of our kids. It's our responsibility.
That's it. Or the state said we had to do this or else, or I'm like, hold on a second. Let me stop you right there. It is not
Yeah.
anybody else's responsibility to handle, like to deal with your children except for you. It's not the
Yep.
school's responsibility. It's not your neighbor's responsibility. It's not the state's responsibility. You know who makes it their responsibility? You do. You do
Yeah, by handing over your power and letting
by
them
that's
then
it. By not
utilize
saying
it.
no, by not saying, feel like, no, we're not going to do it that way because I'm the boss. I'm the steward of the child I chose to create and put out in the world. And like, I've had people who would sit there and actually complain to me that, oh, my kids are so expensive. Oh, my kids this. Oh, my kids that. And I'm like, hold on a minute. You're the one who chose to reproduce. And even if that was an accident, you still chose the actions that give you the potential to reproduce. So who are you complaining to?
Yeah.
And why, of all people, are you coming to me and complaining about it?
Yeah. It does come to personal responsibility, right? For that foundation and what we create, like from that creation, including like our children. And there's so, then we're up against, these forces like mandatory education, that will attempt to pull our kids away from us. And then we often feel like we don't have another choice but to allow them to go to school, for example, so that we can, make a living and keep the home, right? And then we have these dilemmas around asserting our true role, right, as a parent, the one that is responsible for the children, because the schools create their whole set of like rules and things that they will argue with us about, right?
Oh, yeah. I've gone through a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And most people don't bother to even question, the rules of the school, so to speak. The way
that is
they
true.
do things. And
it's true. Even the little family thing, they said, oh, well, we have not had any other family complain about this program. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not your average person. Like, you poked my family values, and we will be picking her up at this time every Friday.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind them of who's actually, the boss of like your kid's experience, so to speak, if you want to call it that, it's a tricky word. But it's interesting. And even, and this is a side note, we could get off on the school thing. Yes. But even in the education code, it identifies the parent as the number one. They're not supposed to do anything without the parent's permission,
consent,
right, the consent. And that's avoided a lot.
And that has become a serious problem. I think that's definitely a threat when it comes to I think there's an assault on many different angles, angled at the home and hearth concept and the idea of a structural family. Like, a couple hundred years ago, you didn't need two parents going off to work. Really, you didn't even really need one parent going off to work, because if you had a structural home, that was a homestead. That was your family home.
And a community where,
you've had generations of people in that home, and it's already self-sustaining for the most part. Maybe you need this or that from this place or that place. But that's where you had your commerce stuff come in. So now they try to make it sound like that was like just nothing, and everybody died when they were like 30. And we didn't have any kind of technology or street smarts or wherewithal or intuition. We just did not know how to survive 200 years ago somehow, even though the human race has been at least documented several thousands, of existence or whatever. I mean, and there's many theories about that, but that's another topic. But like this assault on the home and hearth and breaking it up and giving people this idea that it's bad to have a homestead, that it's bad to have a family home, it's bad to have even being living in the same home as your parents or your in-laws or grandparents. It's bad if you don't kick your kid out when they're 18. It's like, that's not how you do things. I'm like, well, it's how we did do things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the only thing I see that changed is we had a little bit too much of the man's intuition and modern technology wedge its way into the growth of humanity, where technology and modern conveniences aren't bad, but yeah.
You know, a lot of thoughts are popping into my head.
Me too.
Yeah. What you said, Brittany, about homestead in a community, I think that's really key, that there is a smaller, the smallest unit, the family, the individual in the family, in a community that had an interdependency and a mutual care, right? That allowed the thriving of children. And so children had aunts and uncles and grandparents and, other people that cared about them, right? That helped to support, there's a supportiveness that I could imagine is really possible in these smaller sort of communities. And I think that some of what has assaulted, if you want to say, or threatened the home is how big, in a way, how small the world has become by luring people away from their locality into faraway places. So then families become split and the family unit becomes broken, and then the extended relatives are disconnected, and so we're very scattered, most of our families. And I think that is a weakening of the power of that unit and the potential of that. And then so the delocalization and the separating of families, and then add to that sort of some of the aspects of the patriarchy that I would say there was a demoralization and a devaluing of the woman's role, of motherhood, of householding. In fact, I had seen a meme that made me mad when International Mother's Day came in March or something. And it said something like, today is not a day to celebrate mothers or housewives. It's about the opposite, And it was very distressing to me. And it highlighted that a lot of this sort of feminist movement and the upset with the patriarchy is actually where women are participating with the patriarchy against the actual feminine qualities or the value of women as mothers or householders. And I think if you don't value motherhood or parenting or fatherhood for that matter, because I think that this patriarchy as it's defined is also not valuing the role of a father or a mother or parenting and that unit, right? And so then what's that mean? That in effect is not valuing children, not caring about children. And if we're a society that doesn't value or care about children or their moral foundation or the platform and foundation of which they're raised, then we are not caring about our society. And it's this very satanic self-serving agenda that then is being promoted under this guise of equality or feminism. So it's very tricky.
It's inversion.
Yeah.
It's absolute inversion of all that, like all the neo-Nazi feminine woke stuff. This is like an inversion, like of Home and Hearth qualities of both the balance of it. But I'm just letting you know, we've got about 5-6 minutes here.
Wow.
So if we get cut off, I'm gonna send you another link so we can finish our discussion.
Gotcha.
So
Okay, good way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Leslie, I liked how you had mentioned there was like maybe a devaluing of these kind of family um values and morals, because like you can see how, like if you look from a broad perspective, you can kind of see why people would grow in certain ways, you know. Maybe people travel for work, because that's the best opportunity in that field. Maybe women went to work, which I mean, it's true. Like with World War II, a lot of them went to work a lot in the factories when all the men were drafted into war. And so they stepped up and did what they had to do. But I think if we don't hold certain values near and dear to our hearts, we're less likely to take action from them. So I think sometimes
Mm,
we get stuck kind of in survival mode, to where we look at, you know, what do we have to do? And sometimes when we are focusing on a certain area, we kind of drop the ball a little bit in others. And so I see this kind of reemergence of these family values coming back, but it really hurts my heart to see the feminist kind of group. I really don't relate to them whatsoever. Um, I guess I was just raised by men, and me being a strong woman has nothing to do with devaluing men. It has nothing to do with negating men. And I just don't like how they push against men, because then it kind of singles themselves out. Then they're just missing half of the experience. Those are just my thoughts on that. But I can see
mhm.
how things naturally progress. But like what serves in one way limits in another. And
Yeah.
so, you know, we might go to a certain area for the sake of learning something, but it might limit us in certain ways, which cause us to come back and hopefully, like in terms of home and hearth and family, hopefully, people can bring that back and hold that a little bit closer to their hearts as they move forward, making their choices and growing. Hey,
Yeah.
girls, can you turn your volume down a little bit?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think that survival need is really important to explore. What we families, have responded to the need to survive, and whatever that takes, right? Depending on what's happening in the larger world. And that has required, for the most part, for, let's say, mothers to work, to leave their infants very young ages, to put their kids into daycares and child care centers and schools, and basically handing over a lot of the moral teaching to other people. And I'm guilty of that. I did that. I was a single mom,
You have
and
to rely on others for support
yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. And I like the idealist aspect of it takes a village to raise a child, but yet what's really hit me is that the moral truth, moral foundation of teaching is so, so important. And it gets watered down when the more that our children are away from us, and they get confused,
A
and there's a lot of
variety of different things
mhm,
versus what you specifically are wanting to instill
mhm.
in them.
Yeah, it's easy to lose them, because of the
they
lure of everything
are
out there.
are like children are very impressionable, and like I've heard it from some people, like children are too dumb to like figure this out, that
Mm-mm.
out. And I'm like, I don't know why you think that, because the thing is like they're brand new. Everything's new. And so and they take in everything that we do. And even if they're not listening to us, they see and they absorb everything we do,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily what we say. And that is like the leading by example thing. And like, I mean, the indoctrination plans, they get that. That's why they want to get them as young as possible. They want
Yeah.
pre-K, they want Montessori, they want you to give up your responsibility of your child as quickly as you possibly can. As soon as they're done weaning, they want us to give them over. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, I'm not saying that people can't make whatever system they have in their local areas workable. It's just it's just people don't understand that there's a family community as well as your internal family, right? So you have the family inside your home, which is building your personal home and hearth, whatever, however that family is or ends up being, because your family is who gravitates to you. It's not necessarily your kids or people you're related to. Sometimes it's a neighbor who like ends up being like, a family uncle or something like that. Sometimes your family are the people who like connect with you on that level. But then you have your community family, which is people in your community. And this is,
She doesn't have to, but she can if she wants.
Aw, thank you. That's awesome. I'll be in touch when my life slows down a little bit.
Sure. She says she'll be in touch when her life slows down a bit. He says, sure.
All right, cool.
hey
Thanks,
guys,
Brian.
can you hear me
And
okay?
she said, thanks.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. I'm sorry about that. I was looking into other methods of like recording too. My other thing didn't work too well.
What I'm doing now for Dissolving the Divide, because Derek isn't able to use the Restream is I'm recording on my Zoom, and I have I pay for a
monthly thing.
Yeah, I pay for confidentiality for my work, but it allows me to have unlimited time on Zoom. So I could use that, and then I send it by WeTransfer to his email. So I could do that with you, Sara. I could.
Okay. Oh, I was thinking about just paying for the thing on
totally
Zoom
fine.
because I could use it for other things, and that might help me to be able to do more interactive online work with people as well.
Yeah, it's handy. It's very handy.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about doing that anyway. So anyway.
Do you wanna go back to what your thought was, Sara, when we were interrupted? And
let's see. Well, I had just a few notes that I had written up about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to excuse me. But I wanted to just talk about the importance of understanding Home and Hearth in regards to people maybe not so much as thinking of it as a physical thing, even though it is very much a physical thing. It is really it has to start inside, and you have to have that, I guess you could people will call it like balance or whatever. But it's really your own internal home and hearth. And if you feel secure or, set in place with who you are, you're confident with who you are, you don't have anything pulling at you to pull the threads bare, if that makes sense, to unravel who you are, then you have that structure to be able to create, that in the physical world. And it's just, you got to create you first. You have to be a very sound structurally you inside.
That's an excellent point. Yeah.
And I just wanted to read a little blurb of what I wrote here, and you could tell me what you think. And how you see this and what you want to add to it as well. And women need to take back the sacred healing arts and stop conforming. And I would say that this is definitely one of these modern feminist things. It's such a conformist movement, and like they really think they're being unique. And I'm like, you're not. You're playing into the hands of conformity, and you're destroying your future and your creative abilities. So like it's very hard for me to even be like, oh yeah, I'm totally a feminist. I can't tell people that because they're going to think all the wrong things about me. And I can't stop that kind of thing. But um there must be a balance of the natural healing arts and their intervention of man's intuition. So I do think that what we are capable of doing ourselves naturally, that's we need to be able to understand how to use that and how to be able to use it with the outside world and any kind of man-made modern intervention that takes place in it. So if it moves this way, we move that way, or we learn to dance. And yeah, we got to find that, not everything is this negative thing. Not everything in the modern world or man's intervention or man's, modern building, of society is a negative thing. A lot of it is. A lot of it does us a lot of harm. But most things can do us a lot of harm if we choose not to pay any attention to it or nurture it in the right ways. Or, if you keep a loaf of bread on the shelf for a month without doing anything, without maybe eating it or freezing it to preserve it or do something, it's going to rot. That's the same thing if with almost anything in society. If you let it just sit there and you don't give it any nurture, any of that natural intervention into the man's intervention, it's going to rot and go bad. So I feel like women do conform to society so much on a scale that it's actually destroying who we are as women, and it's destroying our natural abilities. And this is just really feeding the inauthentic woman persona. And if we're not careful, it'll eat us alive. We won't exist anymore. So
it's interesting. It's almost too like there's less need to rely on a partner, male partner, because the state steps in to fill the role, a lot, right? And the more that the traditional dynamic breaks down, the more the state can come in and replace it. I think that's one thought. But I also think that your point about the internal health, which is that, the individual is the health of the individual and the balance of their own, masculine, feminine, the right and left hemispheres of the brain, the emotional health is so vital, because the structure of a house or a hearth is not going to create the health of a family or the child. It's the health of the individuals that are creating, that foundation, right? So each individual needs to address themselves and their own health. Yeah,
I think you explained that better than I did, Leslie. But that's exactly it. Like, we have to be structurally sound.
I like that phrase, structurally sound.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And our inner structures, right?
And so much of everything we do, it starts on the inside first, because depending on where you're at on your own journey, you'll operate based off of where you are. Sometimes lacking a certain value will have you taking actions in a certain area only to bring you back to the awareness that I need this and I want this in my life, like love and care. And I sincerely wish every feminist out there who is trying to free herself from men and all that they offer, I hope that they can return back to their heart and soul, and realize that life is more beautiful when everybody's there and everybody's supported. But I also see how if we work on ourselves and we grow our sense of awareness, we can bring that into the home. But it always has to start from within first. We have to have a desire. We have to have, or a strong belief, something that that encourages us to take action and have an experience and gain awareness from that. So I hope that we can see more love and care return back into the home, structure, strong families, and lots of good that comes from that. Because I think people have been out working from home for so long. I think that hopefully, we see a continued rise, I guess, in the home, the heart, the hearth, and all that falls under that lovely umbrella.
Yeah.
I think it should definitely be encouraged, and especially in our like what I was saying before, the family community. This is a valuable tool, and like where we are the stewards of our children personally, and we are the ones who are responsible for how they develop. There's something to say about the family community being part of that child's development and how they learn how to, figure things out and become that structurally sound individual. I mean,
Yeah.
if you've ever seen the movie Pollyanna, it's like an old classic movie.
I haven't.
It's like an old Disney movie, but it's called Pollyanna, and it's like a very old classic. I forget the decade, but it's about a young girl, and this young girl, she had a wonderful mother and father, and they gave her this foundation. And then when she was, I think she's probably about 11 or 12, the character, terrible things strike in her family. Her parents die, and she has moved to an aunt or a caretaker who is quite wealthy. And this person is this like matriarch of the family community. It's a small town. And what's really interesting about Pollyanna, and it's kind of a beautiful idea, is that this little girl who had such a foundation from two very loving parents who unfortunately passed away, they put in enough into her to go into this brand new, totally foreign environment with people who didn't know her, didn't care for her really. They're just taking her on because, like, well, who else is going to take her? What am I going to do? I have them, can't. So they just take her, and slowly she gets, like, this whole town just has such a bad attitude, and they're so disconnected from each other. Like, they're negative. They don't do anything. They have they're not really friends. They're just living together, in this town. And this little girl brings them together in this way where she goes up to them and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she's got like 5,000 questions, and she's like, "Well, what are you doing that for? Well, what is that? Well, what made you think that? Why are you saying that? Why are you asking for this?" And it's like questions like, well, why would you ask a mortician to come to your house so you can pick out your coffin and all your lining? And she's like, well, I'm old and blah, blah, blah. And, this is like one of the scenes. And she's like, well, I've got all these like quilt scraps. Can you make this quilt for the fair? And she's like, fair? What fair? So it's like the whole point is like this movie ends up in this big fair where everybody comes together. And this little girl actually brought them together in a way where they're actually friends. They communicate together. They are hanging out with each other. They're in an environment together, and they're doing family community activity together. And then at the end of the movie, she falls out of a tree and becomes paralyzed. Okay. And the entire town comes to her house where she's living, and they're all like, what's happened to Pollyanna? And with that, Pollyanna, this little girl, became like the heart of this town.
Oh, wow.
And she was able to build this family simply by, giving them something that they needed, which was that connection that they needed with other human beings. And that's all she did.
And then the connection like healed her broken bone in a way, like symbolically, right?
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't even like bad. She wasn't even mad that she couldn't walk anymore. She's just like, well, you're getting along now, right? See you when I get back from the hospital. Bye. That was like it's just kind of a really beautiful story. It's based off of a classic story that Disney wrote a movie about, but
lots of nuggets in there, good nuggets.
Yeah, it's a nice story that can show people that it's not just within our home and our family, like our husbands or wives or whatever, our spouses or children or parents that are important. Our family community is just as important to that structure. So
yeah, good example. Brittany, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was just listening and thinking. I love the idea of community too. I see what you guys were saying earlier with how because of the various communities, kids get various values and things like that. It's good, but I guess I find a desire to have more mirroring values amongst society, but people are always where they are on their journeys. But I think earlier in our conversation, you guys had mentioned families living together and stuff like that. Yeah, I like how it's seen in other cultures that is not a bad thing. I've kind of been opening up to that idea too as I age, just because I love my parents, and if they ever need anything, I'd be like, come live with me. But yeah, I'd love to see our communities grow, and I think we would probably need to um have some values and morals that match. So a lot of that stuff it can be really simple. I just think most people have kind of grown disconnected from their heart, from those values, from these things that are so very important to us. But that's one reason why I love natural law. It's still there. Everything's there on a foundational level. We just all have different levels of awareness. And I think that if we can communicate about these topics and speak about them openly, like it's not a bad thing. Like it's not a bad thing to have a man and a woman living together and raising a family. It's not bad if people work together. It doesn't just have to be singled out, woman power, screw all the men. Like, no, like it's not a bad thing to have these things. I think that the more that we have little discussions like this, the more it will let people know, like, it's okay. Like there are programs out there that I think are designed to kind of incline certain people lacking certain values to choose those things, like choosing certain belief systems that the state might promote. But I really think that it's all inherent in us. I think we all have these inner desires. We're so wired for connection as mammals and stuff like that, to where I think that if we can talk about this stuff openly, I think truth would kind of prevail over any distortion that isn't necessarily true. And then the more we talk about it, the better it is, because then it's not made to be bad or wrong.
I think that we'll end up saying a lot of things that other women and men too are thinking, but discouraged from saying because of the climate in the world right now.
Or they're letting their fear of, well, if I say this, I'm just gonna get trolled or chastised, or somebody's gonna say something mean to me on the internet or whatever. So I'm afraid of saying what I think about it. And I'm like, well, I'm not. And you had it right, Brittany. It's like we're being, why do you think the ruling classes work so hard to condition us is because we naturally open our hearts to care and love and the natural progression of ourselves, of physical selves, of spiritual selves. It's part of us naturally. It's what we instinctually want to do. So, like the ruling class in our society has done certain things with our institutions and our modern technology to do anything and everything that it can to try and shut that off. Turn the volume all the way down off spirit so we can't hear anything. So, and just lock our heart away, throw away the key, don't let anything in or out. Don't even try, because if you try, you're gonna fail. And that's like this idea, I think it creates a fear in people, and a fear that people just, they don't even know how to identify it. They don't even know that they're afraid of it.
Yeah. People get kind of beaten down spiritually, the fire of their heart and hearth is sort of diminished, and they're
and then you're afraid.
Yeah.
You're afraid of making that connection. Or maybe you've identified it and you're afraid to even try. You're afraid, well, if I do try to like have this kind of life, what if I fail? What if maybe a dragon? There's so much of that now that it's like really just, they don't even have to do any work. We're doing it for them.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying earlier about confidence. And I've had this within the last several months. I had this big realization that, like, you can't even have confidence unless you have courage first, because anything that you're afraid of, you have to choose to be brave through that fear in order to progress through that. And like, if you want to grow your confidence in a certain area, you have to grow your courage first, and you have to start going with courageous choices and the results of those choices. And through that, I find that really builds confidence. The more that you face something that you're afraid of and you just go for it and you just keep getting back up until you get it right, like that lets you know that you can do it. And it grows strength and, of course, confidence.
And I think the confidence in a growing child comes from how they're raised, and how parents allow children to explore and experiment and build the safety and security within themselves, so that it comes back to the safety of home and hearth, because that is the foundation of a child's inner security. So like, as parents or family caregivers, we are ultimately building the internal structure of the child.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And that includes their confidence and their security. Right. And so that's such an important job. It's really vital to a healthy society, is that structural foundation, both that ultimately is within all of us and what we're creating for the children, so that they go forward, as healthy in the world. And I think that things like, the economics pressures and stresses, they lead to the stress of the parents. So the parents are stressed out. I think of myself, very kind of worried and stressed and working hard, and then exhausted and not much time for like keeping up with the household things, maybe taking shortcuts, not making food at home. Then the tradition and rituals of like family meals kind of disappears, and families become very like segregated and separate, with a kid run into this sport and another kid over here, and fast food on the way, or like all these things that have become so normalized in our society, that I think are little by little just like unweaving. They're like, we're going to take like the fabric of our society, the fabric of a family, like it's like, what did you say, Sara? Like it's like unraveling that, it's very
piece by piece, thread by thread. Another decade goes by, another thread gets pulled out of that weave, slowly, painfully, maybe, maybe and all kinds of different things start happening, and you change from, and every time you have a thread pulled from you, you change.
Yeah.
Just like if you were to add a thread, it's, I guess it's a kind of a weird metaphor, but
That's a good one.
It's an exchange. Anytime you go to start something new and adopt a change, you have to let go of something that doesn't fit that. It's like what serves in one way can limit in another. You might go this way, and then that limitation encourages you to grow. And you always have to exchange something for that change. You have to do something different. You have to become something different at every step of the way. And so it's like a constant unraveling and coming together again.
And I like that example, that framing.
Yeah. And with every experience we have, we change. And whether people like it or not, we don't necessarily stay exactly the same. Maybe the base programming of who we are doesn't alter all that much, but parts of us will alter and change for this way or that way. Our viewpoints, or how we do things, or how we speak, or how we do our hair, or whatever. Something changes, and it's because we're always changing. That's reality.
But we also have choices. And I think I like how, Brittany, the way you described that was very kind of neutral and non-judgmental. Very much. And what that means really is about the importance of our consciousness in the choices that we're making, of what we're giving up in exchange for what we're gaining. So we may gain an extra car or like a bigger house, but what are we losing in the process from the actual heart of our family and our, so what is our level of consciousness and our awareness of what we're losing as we're in survival mode, thinking, we're chasing the shiny lights that keep like showing up.
Our desires, things we want to do and have and accomplish. And
So that's where, like, I think really an understanding of natural law and objective morality and understanding ourselves and understanding like what creates health in a mental health is really key here, and physical health as well, and taking full responsibility for the choices we make that are going to have ripple effects, right, for our health and our children's health, the family health, and then the generations that come forward after.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's great that you said that, Leslie, because everything we do, everything we say, feel, and do in this world does ripple. It is a stream of consciousness. It is going to affect yourself and everything around you just by natural compulsion. It can't help itself. It's like, it's just how reality works. And this is hard. I think that's really hard for people to really understand or really just think about. It's a lot for them to even absorb that as a statement, because it's like, oh, well, if I start thinking like that, then I have to think about every single little tiny aspect of the entire universe. And I'm like,
if you want,
slow down a minute.
But you don't have to.
First, just think about that statement in regards to yourself only. Yeah. And then once you're comfortable with that, and once you've got that regulated, then move on to the people within your home. And then move on to the people within your neighborhood. And if you want to be part of that, or go be a hermit out in the middle of the desert and really go inward and do all that inner focusing for your whole life. Either way you can do it. But I like everything you said about that, Leslie.
It's like this weaving metaphor seems really big, and I think it's apropos, like, to us talking about home and hearth, and what you do, Sara, with your crafts and your art. And it's like we are weaving the web, and the Nordic analogy of the Norns, the tapestry of weaving of past to present to sort of future is how the world is created, our lives are created.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of beautiful when you like step back and you look through it. You look at it, you know, through the window instead of being in the store and being overwhelmed by it, you know, all of it. I try to teach people in a way where it's like, step back and look through the window first. You know, don't just go into the store and be overwhelmed. You know, like, this is like, but I deal with a lot of people, I think, who need that. They need that kind of perspective. They need somebody to tell them to pull back a little bit. So that's what
like, look and see before you leap, you know,
right.
And get overwhelmed with all the choices. It's like, know what you want to, what you're aiming for, what is guiding your choices, right?
Yeah. Be patient with it.
Yeah.
Don't go trying to get it.
I'm still learning that lesson. As an Aries moon, I'm a professional at charging into things. I'm often reminded that I should wait and pause and then respond.
Yeah, I've done it too. I'm like, I've had to learn that skill. It can be difficult. I'm like, no, I gotta wait. No.
That brings up like the pacing of life too. And I think of, kind of a home-centered life as being somewhat more balanced and like it's connected with the rhythms of life and the rhythms of nature, let's say, including like, let's say gardening, and like you're doing on a homestead, raising animals, and seasonally there's, patterns, and we adjust and harmonize with nature. And I think that the more that we connect to home and hearth, we're connecting to those elements as well and natural patterns. I'd love to hear more about your experience, Brittany, as doing the homesteading.
Yeah, well, as soon as it got very cold, Brian started chopping some wood. So, I mean, we do have like electric heaters, and we use one, but we mostly burn wood to heat our little old trailer. It very much, especially with the animals, you can't help but be in touch with the seasons because you're out there every day. Based on the sky and what it looks like, you'll know if we have a storm coming in, if it's going to be warm, if it's going to be cold. Brian was just telling me the sun even looks in a slightly different position than it usually is this time of year. We've had a relatively warm November for us over here. But yeah, I mean, we definitely focus on a lot of family values. We try to do stuff like together and whatnot. And having the homestead and farm, it just really gets you connected with the seasons and the shifts. And just today we went on a beautiful hike for the first time in what feels like forever. And it's a big thing for us. It's just normal for us. Even my daughter, she's moving up in a competition from it was a drawing competition. She made a poster for peace, and just they couldn't help but notice that she went towards symbols and symbolism. And that's one of the reasons why she's advancing nationally, is because she just did such a beautiful job. And it's like, just living this lifestyle, we're teaching our kids some things that we don't even mean to. She has somewhat of a natural animistic perspective already. So for her peace poster, she picked a dream catcher and a dove carrying olive branches. And she made a beautiful work of art. But that was just a way that I didn't see how our lifestyle would kind of rub off on her and impact her. But it's all just interconnected. It's very, very normal, and we wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And you said too that your kids were really well adapted to the academic aspects of school.
Yes.
From homeschooling.
Yes.
Right? And I think that we've forgotten how children learn and really thrive through the natural, experience of being at home and interacting with the environment and participating in natural skills, right?
Yes.
Self-sufficiency and things. And then the social emotional aspects hopefully are being addressed in a way
Very
that,
much so. We discuss so much. In fact, something that our kids are always praised on is how well articulate they are. They speak very well. They communicate very well. We do not really baby talk them. We might get a funny voice when we're like going to play something, but we speak to our children like the way I'm speaking to you now. And kids are in, I believe, theta brainwaves until they're about 8. And so they're just in pure sponge mode. They just receive everything that you teach them. So if you've done a lot of the inner work, and you've aligned yourself in ways that have you progressing, feeling in, I guess, harmony with yourself, because there's a way of living that just feels like total crap. Kids will pick up on that stuff. And it's just been amazing to see them grow and just to hear feedback from other people. That's been another cool thing about them going to the school. It's like kind of it's like a test, what have we done here and how does that translate in society? And people are so impressed with the girls. They're both straight A students. They love how they are helpful and caring and supportive, but smart as all shit.
I imagine it gives them a good level of perspective as well.
Yes, especially when
perspective is so important, I think, with those kinds of things. So you're not just like this all the time.
And they totally see things that we mention. We don't do the vaccinations here. They've seen how people go get them, then they get sick. I was warned already about the family programming and how that, like a couple years ago, I was warned about that form of indoctrination. So when we considered putting the girls in, we mentioned that to them. Hey, look out for this. If you hear these certain things being said, I want to know.
What do you mean, Britt?
Well,
programming?
Back during the COVID times, I had another friend who's been homeschooling her kid on and off. She's also explored, putting her back into school. And she told me during COVID, they were doing homeschool, or virtual public school at home. It's still like school, but it's just at home. It's not necessarily homeschool. And she was listening in on them. And that specific teacher, I cannot say it's every public school, but they were telling the kids, hey, we are more like your family than your own family.
Wow.
You spend more time with us, so we're like your family. And my friend has matching morals in that respect towards family. And so something she forewarned me about. So I made sure to communicate that to the kids. And so it's interesting for them to start seeing, whoa, like what mom mentioned, it happened. And now that I'm not the only one who doesn't vaccinate our kids. So my oldest is like, Mom, I have friends and they're just like you. They don't like the government or vaccines. And I'm like, cool, babe. You don't have to be the lone black sheep in there.
Awesome.
Wow.
They figure it out. All you have to do is show them.
Like what we teach them at home matters when they go out into the world. They do take what you say to heart, and they observe things in their own way.
School them, it's what you're doing. That matters.
Yeah, that foundation that then they that first 5 years or however many is so foundational for the critical period of learning for children, and then they have that as their foundation when they go in and they start to see the contradictions, and they'll start to see that things don't make sense, right? And question them.
They're using their own logic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Oh, we're about to be cut off again. So
all right,
we've got less than a minute. So do you guys have any last things you want to say?
Thanks for getting together, ladies.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sara, for initiating this. I think it's powerful to have women coming together. And this is a really good and important topic. And I'm glad we started out with this. Yeah.
Thank you for joining me with it. And we'll do it again next month. And I will send some more information, including an edited video, to you guys as soon as this is done.
Sounds great. I really appreciate your courage, Sara, and your just like commitment to be yourself and like speak the truth. I think it's awesome. You're inspiring me. Yeah.
I appreciate